Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Could you mute your mic, please, Gil? I'm hearing some echo in the background. Thank you. Uh, Live episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I had to take a couple of weeks off, but now we're back with the live show. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
Good Monday.
Indeed. Like I said, after a couple of weeks off, we're now back. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report live YouTube show, podcast and blog discussing all things boxing. And the motto is, when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we'll talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. Just posted a post today on the Pound for Pound Box Report recording Claressa Shields. We will talk about her throughout the show. During the show this evening, if you want to check the right of the blog page, you'll find the links to our channels and pages all over social media: Facebook, YouTube, G+, Twitter. You know the deal. Also links to where to listen to the show on all available platforms that carry podcasts, minus Spotify. Let's get going this week. I'm going to recap not only this weekend, fights this weekend, but also one main fight that took place a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to start with the DAZN card that took place in Kansas, headlined by Claressa Shields. She defended her middleweight belts against Hanna Rankin, won by an easy decision. Not much to talk about here when it comes to the particular fight itself. Shields dominated throughout. And I'll go to you on this one, Gail. What interests me is, once again, Claressa Shields was the main event, A. And B, the news that transpired, that dropped today regarding Claressa Shields and her future. So if you want to talk about the fight itself, fine, but talk about also the news development regarding Claressa Shields that dropped today. She's returning to the ring very soon.
It's good for Claressa to get on these cards and get in front of people, get an audience, get a platform. Was it the greatest fight? She got the job done. A lot of people would like to see her, being a little more flashy, scoring some knockouts. But as we have said before, it is a challenge for the women to get knockouts because they fight 2-minute rounds. I'm not saying I like that. In fact, I don't like that. I wish the women would fight 3-minute rounds and they'd have a lot more opportunity to increase that knockout rate. Be that as it may, she controlled the fight. She's learning a lot from working with John David Jackson. I like what I'm seeing. I like her attack, going to the body more. She was an amateur and an extremely successful amateur for so long. And when boxers stay a long time in the amateur system, they learn how to score points. Scoring points is not the same as putting on a power performance in the professional ranks to score knockouts. So you've got to adjust your style, and she's just now getting there, which is great to see. So she won handily. She had a very game opponent in Hanna Rankin. Hanna did her best. She wasn't a pushover, but she was definitely outmatched by Claressa. So she is getting right back in the ring December 8th, which is 3 weeks from now.
Yes.
She's going to go up to the super middleweight division to go up against Femke Hermans, and she is going to fight at StubHub. This is on the same final HBO card that's featuring Cecilia Brækhus and Roman Gonzalez. I like it. I like seeing her getting out to the West Coast, where there's a big fight audience to be had, and a large audience that is used to seeing the women's fighters from Mexico, where there's a huge contingent of women's pros in Mexico. So she's got a ready-made audience out on the West Coast, and it's the last HBO boxing card ever, as far as we know, on December 8th. And, there's something being said about being on that card. She'll be part of a trivia question for the rest of her life. The last HBO card. So, all of us in Southern California, December 8th, outside, we're going to have to bundle up. We might be freezing cold, might be 50 degrees that night outside. Damn. But I think that was a really smart move on her part. I mean, she didn't have a mark on her after her fight Saturday, and it was easy rounds for her. So I like it. And I like the opportunity for her and Cecilia Brækhus to be breathing the same air and getting a close look at each other. They're going to, have them get up close and personal at some point during the week. We'll see what happens. It's a good move. Very good move.
A bit of a correction here. Actually, Femke, she's who is current WBO champion at 168 pounds. She's moving down in weight to challenge Claressa Shields in December 8th. I'll go to you, Daniel. If you want to talk about her fight with Rankin, please do. But again, she's returning to the ring quickly. And the interesting thing about this, and I wrote this for not only for my own personal blog, Pound for Pound Box Report, I also wrote an article for Three Kings Boxing. Shout out to those fellas. Posted a write-up today regarding Claressa Shields. Maybe you can correct me here, but one, look, even though it's kind of sad that HBO is deciding to no longer do cover boxing, but if you're a fan of women's boxing, this is kind of historic here, because ending the show, basically a 3-fight card, 2 women. Claressa Shields is going to be the opening bout. Cecilia Brækhus, welterweight champion, is going to be the headliner. A card featuring arguably the top 2 women's pound-for-pound fighters in the sport. You don't see that in the men, but yet you're seeing it here on this final card for HBO. Your thoughts, Daniel?
Number one, I kind of like that she's keeping herself busy. She's not letting Christina Hammer's illness delay her and keep her on the shelf. I like the fact she's keeping herself ready, making sure she's always fresh for that eventual fight with Hammer. As far as how this all factors into it, it actually just shows how popular Claressa Shields is. Because this is the 3rd network she's going to be on this year. She was on with Showtime. Obviously, like I said, we talked about, she's on with in the Zone. And she's going to be on HBO. So there's an interest in her. So it's going to be telling to see how she's going to prepare, because her story is always one that's always going to draw people to crowd. It's always going to draw people in. Now, whether people want to see pure knockouts of it, you have to give it a while. I think this is her 2nd fight with John David Jackson. So normally, you don't see a full trainer, until around the 3rd or 4th fight. You don't see a full trainer stamp on a fighter. So I'm kind of glad. I'm glad that she's keeping herself busy. And it's interesting that HBO is going to go on this note. Because Showtime, like I said, was always ahead of them when it came to this. When it came to women's boxing. And now it took them going out for the foreseeable future, being now heavily interested in women's boxing.
Sorry, I was on mute. I may have mistakenly said that Claressa Shields, she was the headliner of this particular DAZN card when she was not. She's kind of the co-feature. Going to the main event, Big Baby Miller returning to the ring, fought a guy by the name of Dinu. I'll just open up for either of you, Gail or Daniel, if you want to talk about this fight. Miller stopped Dino in 4 rounds. Normally, I'm critical of Miller, but I'm not going to be in this case, given how we now learned that Miller was dealing with a cold. He was under the weather. B, he was dealing with some hamstring issues. In hindsight, about as professional as you can get. Uh, you know, Miller basically waited his time. I think because he was sick, I kind of think he reserved himself. But when he turned it up, stepped on the gas, it was over. Uppercut hurt Dino, and then just basically a follow-up assault put him down a couple of times, and he was gone. So again, Gail, Daniel, if you want to talk about the fight, fine. But more importantly for me, 2019, where do you think Miller goes? What direction do you think that Hearn will take him?
Well, Miller and Hearn turned out to be a good combination. Miller's willing to stay busy. He seems to get along well with Eddie, and good for him. He's doing the same thing. He did the same thing Saturday that Shields is going to be doing here in a couple of weeks. It was a stay busy fight. He got right back in front of the audience, right back in the ring. Considering he had a few handicaps in the ring, he did just fine. Dinu didn't look terrible. He won the first 2 rounds. He was boxing Miller, and Miller was just staying clear of him and getting an eyeful. But once Miller started to muscle in on him and control the ring and make that ring look smaller, which is always his goal, then he unloads on him. And, a lot of people sort of, speak ill of Big Baby. There are some haters. There's some Big Baby haters. I'm not one of them because, sure, he bided his time in the first couple of rounds, and you could say he was, getting a slow start. But if he was under the weather and he, was feeling some tightness in the hamstrings, he's got to warm up before he can get too busy. And he's got to be smart in case the fight does go a lot of rounds. It turned out it didn't. And once he was warmed up, once he could close in, say what you will, he is not a one-punch knockout guy. He's a combination power punch knockout guy. He throws several good punches in combination. And he throws that great, 3-punch combo that sets up with the uppercut and then comes on in, either from the right or the left to the temple, and you're done. If you can deliver those with speed and power, you are done. And that's exactly what he did. He looked good. I think in 2019, he's the lady in waiting. He has just got to bide his time until the few guys at the top sort of sort out their business and figure out where he goes in the mix. I think in his immediate future, the best fight he could make is with Dillian White, especially now that he's working with Eddie Hearn. And as we say frequently on this show, and I'm going to use this line again, I don't hate that fight. I don't hate it at all. They're both good talkers. They're both entertaining. They'll both be fun to watch in the ring. I'm good with that. There's some talk about Luis Ortiz. I wouldn't hate that either. I'd rather see him fight White, honestly. And although it wouldn't be, I don't think, a real challenge for him, there is Joseph Parker floating around out there. So he's got a lot of options. Obviously, he wants a piece of Anthony Joshua or Wilder, or for that matter, we don't know what Tyson Fury's going to do here, in a week plus. So he's got lots of good options as long as he doesn't get seriously hurt. So he needs to be careful. And as long as he doesn't do something stupid and get caught with a punch. And hey, it can happen to anybody. But 2019 should be a good year for Big Baby. Certainly for his bank account.
You mentioned Dillian White as a potential future opponent. Dillian White, of course, fighting Derek Chisora in their rematch on the 22nd of December. After the fight, he called out the winner of that fight. It was really interesting to fight with Dillian White. Called out Daniel basically every prominent British heavyweight on the scene. If you want to comment about this fight with Dino, fine. But once again, I'll pose the question to you that I posed to Gail. 2019, where do you see him going? What direction do you see Eddie Hearn taking him?
Right now, he's probably getting in a direction that's going to keep him away from Joshua for a bit. Mainly because he's an entertaining guy, and he looks like to be a hard guy to knock out. And granted, yeah, we make fun of his weight, but he's one of the few guys that will actually give problems to Joshua because he won't have the size advantage. And is because we see how agile he is. Joshua may not fully have then the speed advantage. But what this fight showed is Big Baby will eat the jab if he feels he can win. You can do that against a guy like Dinu. You can't do that with guys like Ortiz, Wilder, and Joshua. Because they will come to it. Now, is it keeping him busy? Yes. Is it getting him closer to either Wilder or Joshua? Not really. Well, this fight was a little bit more of a situation where the WBA decided to get really, really stupid again. This was technically supposed to be for the regular belt, but they chose not to strip Manuchar, despite the fact that Manuchar popped. And then that's a blessing in disguise for Big Baby, because then if it would have been for the title, we all knew who his next fight was going to be. And frankly, that's a fight I do not want to see. So I'm glad that he's keeping himself busy. I do hope that he tries to get under 300 pounds, because it just gets bad at a certain point. Like, you can only rely on natural athleticism for so long.
Want to move on to the DAZN card took place Saturday evening. I want to move on to a ESPN bout that took place, the main event, I should say, took place late Friday night, really early in the Saturday morning, East Coast time, as Maurice Hooker, WBO champion at 140 pounds. He took on his number one contender, I believe it was Alex Saucedo. Turned out, Daniel, to be one of the best fights of the year. Saucedo, he knocked down Hooker in the second round, I believe. Early on, he found a lot of success, but the prevailing theme I got from this fight, Daniel, was in spite of the trouble that Hooker may have seemed to be in spite of the problems that he had with Saucedo, the thing that was always working for him was the right hand, be it following the jab, be it as a counterpunch. He kept landing right hands on Saucedo all night long, and it got to round 5, 6, 7. He not only got to Saucedo with the right hand, even earlier before that, if you really break it down, he was hurting Saucedo and hurt him in the 7th, put him down in the 7th, finished him off. Again, one of the action-packed bout, one of the better bouts of 2018. A terrific contest overall.
It actually probably was surprisingly the best fight of the weekend, because Maurice Hooker, he hasn't done much. We know he was a title prospect, but granted, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Rock Nation doesn't know how to promote. He wasn't that well known, and that showing where he won the title against Terry Flanagan didn't do him any favors, mainly because of Terry Flanagan. But in this fight, he was able to show, A, that he was able to get up, and B, that he was able to compose himself. really, really compose himself, not falter off. It was his first title defense. He was in the guy's turf, Saucedo, and not only won, but won in a pretty impressive fashion. And it does make you question then how he would have fared if he would have joined the World Boxing Super Series. We don't really know, but it does give you a different dimension to him where he's known to be able to knock himself out completely, where he's able to effectively go into the knockout if you give him the opportunity, and he's able to set it up pretty well over the course of 2 to 3 rounds, because that's what he wound up doing. He wound up hurting Saucedo to the body, and just that right hand was open all day. And it was out open even leading to Hooker's knockdown. So it's a very interesting fight that's going to happen, that's thrown into this. It's a very fun fight that turned out to be an event. And, you know, Oklahoma, Kansas, that turns out to be a pretty decent market. Granted, we know who the two are, but it turns out to be a pretty decent market now for boxing. Maybe we'll see more cards there.
Going to you, Gail. What were you more surprised by? Excuse me. The fact that Hooker won in Saucedo's hometown, essentially. The fact that he was able to come back after the knockdown, or the fact that Hooker was paid $1.2 million to go into Saucedo's hometown. I mean, he won big. He won twice that night. Not only did he beat Saucedo in very exciting fashion, he gained $1.2 million from Bob Arum.
I would like to know who's negotiating on behalf of Hooker, because that was a stunner. I mean, that blew my head off. And I've got to ask myself, you know, was there some Rock Nation money involved in that they needed to burn off or hide, or I don't know what was going on there. In any event, I have to say, I have been a hater on Maurice Hooker. I have not been a big fan of Maurice Hooker. I was super irritated when he was given a gift decision he didn't deserve over Darlis Perez a couple of years ago on what the heck undercard was that? I think it was the first Golovkin Canelo fight. I think it was. In any event, it was a horrible fight. He lost by a mile, and he still pulled that out. You know, it was just ridiculous. So then he does a couple of, tune-up fights. His next fight, 3 or 4 months later, he got a fight in under the radar in Tijuana, literally against a guy who was like 41-20. It was ridiculous. And he only won a unanimous decision. Talk about embarrassing. Then he has a little kind of a club fight in Dallas, and that's what he did for the next year, right? And then he comes back out of nowhere and fights Terry Flanagan and gets a split decision. But, it's Terry Flanagan, all right? And so my expectations for him coming into this fight were pretty much down to 0. I mean, I'll give you maybe a 0.025 because everybody has the puncher's chance, right? But damn, he proved me wrong. Now, maybe it's a one-time thing. Maybe that big paycheck inspired him. Maybe he finally got his shit together. I don't know what it was. He finally lived up to all the hype and all the talk and all the potential he's had for all this time, and I'm not sure he earned $1.2 million, but he definitely earned the paycheck and he earned the win. And, good for him. I will not be a Maurice Hooker hater anymore. I'm still a little bit skeptical, but, much respect to him for getting the job done under adverse circumstances, and hey, maybe sitting down on his butt like that woke him up. And that does happen with guys. They finally, literally get some sense knocked into them, and they say, you know what? I'm in danger of having this all slip through my fingers. I can't let that happen. So bravo, Maurice Hooker. I never thought in a million years I'd be saying that. We got a mic muted there, mister.
Yep. I'll say this, like there were.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry, I had the mic muted. After the fight, Hooker called out WBC 140-pound champion Jose Ramirez, who was in attendance. Bottom line, simple question, folks. Do you think a fight with Hooker and Ramirez will happen in 2019?
Yes, but not right away. I think they'll both have one more fight first.
Not really right away, because this is one of the fights that's actually going to test ESPN, where they'll actually say, because who did we see with Hooker running around? Good old Eddie. So now maybe that he has a 140-pound champion, and now that he knows he has the World Boxing Super Series and a network deal, maybe, just maybe, he's going to keep him at his own paywall, and that's going to be the test for ESPN, because they've stated they're not going to be the ones to prevent fights from happening.
One more other kind of fun thing that happened at this fight. I mentioned Jose Ramirez was there. Two prominent welterweights were also there, supporting each fighter. Bud Crawford and one Errol Spence, both in attendance. Video popped up all weekend long of the back and forth that these two had with each other. Multiple videos. I saw one on the Boxing Voice. Saw a couple videos pop up on other boxing sites and pages and whatnot. What do you think of the back and forth exchange between Crawford and Spence, and does it excite you even more? How can I put this? Does it whet your appetite for a Spence Crawford showdown, either next year or 2020?
It did me. I enjoyed it. I think these guys were having some fun with each other. I think there's, mutual respect. Excellence recognizes excellence, even though they're adversaries or potential adversaries. They know what it takes to get to the level they are, where they live right now in their sport. And so they're, I appreciate that they conducted themselves, they jawed a lot. They did a little bit of getting in each other's face, but, it was handled really well. It was handled with good humor. Bob Arum's standing there and they're kind of joking with him and, everybody around. There was a very casual vibe around them. You didn't see any of their handlers kind of brushing up close, worried that something physical was going to happen. No, everybody was super relaxed around them. They were letting, media guys whip out their video cameras and, record it. So that says a lot too about the whole fact that it went down in a very sort of lighthearted way. I'm not saying they didn't mean it. I'm just saying there was just no tension or animosity. And, it's going to make for a fun promotion. We all know how Terrence gets. He's the nicest guy in the world outside the ring. He really is. He's great with fans. He's very relaxed when he, will walk through a venue. But he gets that mean streak turned on. And I think it'll be a very different story, if and when the day comes when he faces Earl Spence in the ring. And Spence kind of keeps his aggression under wraps. He's kind of a quiet storm type. He normally doesn't engage in this stuff quite that much. And I think if and when a fight gets set and it gets closer, I think some of this will shut down or at least slow down, get maybe a bit more serious. For now, though, it's lots of fun, and I say let them rip. You know, it's not hurting a thing. And hey, here we are sitting talking about it, and I watched every second of it when it popped up over the weekend. You know, I don't watch a lot of those sort of, you know, chit chatty yapping videos that come from fight cards, you know, when guys get caught, you know, in their seats or walking around. But this one I did. This one I did, which tells you a lot about our interest in these guys.
First of all, shout out to Gus from Corruption in Boxing. He's checking us out live on YouTube. If you want to join the show, Gus, just check your Skype. I left a couple links there to join us on the show this evening. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your reaction to not only the fact that Bud and Spence were in attendance at the Hooker Saucedo fight, but the bit of trash talking that took place between the two.
Considering what happened the week before between Amir Khan and Kell Brook,
oh dear,
there was always a little bit of potential, but this shows
that was not safe. That was some not safe from works. That was some not safe for work stuff. What they did.
Yeah. Well, I know we'll probably get to that in a little bit, but
I'm gonna leave that alone.
But you got to say this when it comes into it. Number one, it shows that both men respect each other.
Yeah.
Because they came at each other with respect. And number two, it's the old adage when it comes down to it, if you leave it up to the fighters, they'll want to fight. And that's what wound up happening. Like I said, it's the same thing with AJ and Deontay Wilder. I'm going to stick to the point where if it were up to AJ, if it were up to Wilder, they would have had this fight already on July 4th weekend, probably in Coney Island. This is telling that they want this fight. They know what the perception of the public is when it comes to this fight. But Spence also knows, he understands, because when we talk, he mentioned Sean Porter. He knows the dynamics and the way the division is structured. He has the more deeper pool of opponents. And Porter, once he takes care of Ugas, is a champion. It's a title unification. And he mainly has to go after Keith Thurman after that one. So both men respect each other. Both men want the fight, but both men are smart enough to know that it's not them blocking the fight. It's other circumstances that are blocking the fight.
It's in your point. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you was finished.
No, like I said, it's that into it, but it should pretty much put to rest all of this negative Nancy stuff for saying like, oh, Spence doesn't want the fight or Bud doesn't want the fight. It should put that should put it all to rest.
Right, and as you said, within your commentary, at the end of the day, it shows that fighters are not afraid, and in spite of the trash talk, there's a genuine level of respect there between the two fighters. That's what I got from it. At the end of the day, it does whet my appetite a bit. I want the fight to happen. I think that's the best fight at the weight. It was a good look that they didn't avoid each other. I'll put it that way. That they didn't avoid each other, because you see situations where people are clamoring for two guys to fight or two ladies, and they're at an event, but there are times where you don't see them step to each other. The fact that they did, the fact that they kept it cordial, relatively speaking, in spite of the trash talk, and the fact that there was there, it was a good look. That's what you see in boxing, and that's that kind of back and forth exchange, I find nothing wrong with that. That's what it's about for me. And for a lot of fans, that's what it's about. And again, it just makes you want to see them fight more. But it is what it is. That's what happens in this sport. No pushing back and forth. Nothing too ugly in there. I found nothing wrong with it. It was a good look for both fighters. Let's move on to. We talked about fights that happened this weekend. I want to go back a couple of weeks since we were off. A big fight at cruiserweight took place over in England. Oleksandr Usyk defending his 4 belts against Tony Bellew, coming back down to cruiserweight. Usyk won by 8th round stoppage. I'll go to you, Gail. What surprised me a bit here was this strategy that Bellew employed. Never known for being a mover and a boxer, but that was his strategy throughout. He found some success early on. I don't know whether it was the fact that Usyk was surprised by what Bellew was doing. Was the moment got to him a bit, nerves. Bellew found some success with the right hand, particularly the counter right hand, be it straight or uppercut. He found Usyk with some shots, but slowly, over time, round 4, 5, 6, 7, you could see Usyk figuring some things out. Bellew may have got a little bit fatigued, but just like I said with Maurice Hooker, the prevailing theme was the right hand for him in his fight, in his win over Saucedo. For me, the prevailing theme for Usyk was the left hand. He began to find a home for the left hand. He began to land that punch consistently more and more. And he began to hurt him, in my opinion, round 6, 7, and 8. And when he finally really hurt him in round 8, it wasn't the left hand that put him down. It was the left hand before that really hurt him. And once he really hurt him and put him down, it was a wrap. So your thoughts on the fight? Were you surprised by the problems Usyk had early, and just your reaction to how he kind of adjusted things in there and eventually took Bellew out?
Well, as good as he is, Usyk is not a pure power puncher, one-shot KO guy. He never has been. He's getting those tools in the toolkit, which is what's making him even more dangerous. Let's remember a couple of things about this fight. First of all, Usyk is one of those guys. He is willing to go into enemy territory. He has fought nearly all of his championship fights, on foreign ground for him. And I would count anything outside Ukraine, Russia, and Southern California as foreign ground for him. So here he is in Manchester, where the crowd is clearly, passionately behind Bellew. He knew what the stakes were for Bellew. And let's also remember this. He's had 16 professional fights. You need to pinch ourselves sometimes and think about this. So talking about him, not doing well in the beginning of the fight or, being slow to warm up, I think it was a brilliantly executed fight because the one thing that Usyk showed that is so important to a guy through his career is patience, is the ability, the confidence in your skills to know that you can assess and take your time. And in the end, the fight will be in your hands and you can do what you want to do. And that's exactly what he did. Bellew was no pushover. He gave a great effort. He was in good shape. He was motivated. So it made for an entertaining fight as long as it lasted. But in the end, Usyk's skill level is just, too much. He's absolutely in his prime. He's cleaned out cruiserweight. It's really hard for him to find, true challenges at this point until unless and until he moves up to heavyweight. And it seems kind of, an assumed thing now that that's going to happen. So, I wouldn't be surprised, if Dorticos wins the second round of the Cruiserweight Super Series. Maybe he gives him a rematch, which would be a lot of fun. I'd love that. And maybe he does that before he moves up. He's going to be on the small side of heavyweight, so he isn't going to be able to muscle his way through the heavyweight division. So the fight he had with Bellew is exactly the kind of fight he's going to need to have as a heavyweight. He needs to be patient. He needs to measure. He needs to figure out where his best weapons lie with any particular opponent, and then figure out the right way to deploy them without just going in there and brawling or trying to muscle a guy out, because at heavyweight, he isn't going to be able to do it. So this was just such a good fight for him in so many ways. And if Usyk isn't the fighter of the year virtually unanimously, I just don't know who else you could argue gets it. Canelo ain't it. I'm sorry.
I agree with you. At this point, Usyk is the 2018 Fighter of the Year. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your reaction to Usyk's win over Bellew from a couple of weeks ago. Surprised at how the fight transpired, and as Gail was alluding to, it almost seems foregone at this point that Usyk is going to eventually move up to heavyweight. How do you think he will fare with the big men in that division?
First, going into the fight, it just shows how disciplined Usyk is. Because for the first 3 rounds, Bellew was having success with right hand, and he was being elusive, and the jab wasn't landing that effectively for Usyk. Some fighters that have at least the same amount of experience or the same amount of professional record as Usyk around that time wouldn't have the discipline to stick with the jab. They would probably just try to change the area and try to just throw haymakers. Usyk didn't. Usyk maintained himself with the jab, and eventually a combination of Bellew getting tired and the jab being so effective that it left Bellew negligent of the left hand. That led to the victory. Now, it was a really good victory because for a while it looked like it was probably going to go to a decision, and I think on 2 of the 3 cards, was it all 3, Bellew was up at the time of stoppage. So it would have been a close call if it went to the cards, probably. However, Usyk took that out of the equation. Now, as far as the heavyweights, you're going to have to give him at least 2 or 3 fights before he tries to get a chance at a Joshua or a Wilder. Because we know he has a skill set. We know he has the forward necessary to give trouble to heavyweights. We don't know if he fully has the power or the chin to take out the heavyweights. Because that's the one division where one punch changes everything. So it's going to be telling what they're going to do, because there are some matchroom heavyweights that Eddie could throw at Usyk. Like David Allen's one of them. Dillion's one of them. I think like somebody that Big Baby mentioned, granted it's for Frank Warren, but that could be interesting is Daniel Dubois. So there's plenty of like little group within the heavyweights that Usyk can take his time with, because a fight with Joshua or a fight with Wilder, I wouldn't see either one until at least 2020. And that's being optimistic.
Okay, let's move on to some news developments here. I'll go to you, Gail, to talk about this story first. Over the past couple of days, over the past week or so, PBC announced their fights for early 2019. Listen, I've been highly critical of one Keith Thurman for good reason. I don't take back my criticism, but I think we can all officially say that the Amber Alerts is over for one, Mr. Thurman. We will finally see him in the ring. So talk about that as well as the early 2019 PBC fight schedule.
Ah, yes, we can throw away all those milk cartons with his name on them, you know, and his picture. We can, yeah, the Amber Alerts, we could shut those down, you know, the helicopters circling saying, you know, if you've seen this man, report him in. He's finally coming in out of the cold. We will see no time Keith Thurman become, at least some of the time, Keith Thurman early in the year. He's having a tune-up fight, you know, and fair enough. He's been on the shelf, what, 14, 15, 16 months. So he's going to fight Saucedo Lopez, you know, a guy with just enough name ID and just enough pop to make Thurman work. It's a fight scheduled for the Barclays Center on January 26th. And this was one of the tent poles of PBC and Fox announcing their schedule over the first couple of months of the year. Also, you've got a few infill fights before this year is over. You've got both of the Charlo brothers on a card together at Barclays. Tony Harrison and Willie Monroe are the two opponents. That's a little Christmas present, Saturday, December 22nd. Should be fun. And that is on the Fox network, TV broadcast network. That's a good one. You know, the Charlos are very appealing, very entertaining. I'm sure you're going to see a lot of feature stories. You know, if they're smart, they should be having them at every big NFL game, interviewed at halftime from now until then, and build up that audience in the next 32 days or whatever it is. The rest of the schedule, you see cards scattered all over, some on Fox broadcast, quite a few on Fox Sports 1, and there's actually some really good ones. Jose Uzcategui and Caleb Plant have a fight.
That fight.
Yeah, I do too, and it's at the Microsoft Theater at LA Live in Los Angeles. That's a venue very similar in size and structure to the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. Nice little place to see a fight. That's on the 13th of January, and that's a perfect fight for Fox Sports 1. And if you're in Southern California, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't want to go see that fight. A lot of fun. Of course, we got Pacquiao and Broner. I'm leaving that one. I just can't even. We have Leo Santa Cruz coming back against Moises Flores, and that's also in LA. Not any specific venue identified for that one. I'm thinking that's probably a Forum fight. Probably fight at the Forum. That's in February. We're going to keep Anthony Durrell busy with Deal Durham. Sean Porter is fighting Ugas in Las Vegas. Again, venue to be determined. Wouldn't hate seeing them at the Park Theater at the Park MGM. That's the former Monte Carlo. That's about the right size for them. That's in March. And then the other big temple fight is Errol Spence and Mikey Garcia. And it is set for AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Interesting, huh? That seems like a awfully big venue for this fight. And it is a Fox Live fight. My understanding is it's a pay-per-view, but I'm not seeing it listed as such. So that remains to be seen. You also have Lamont Peterson, Sergey Lipinets. You got Caleb Truax and Peter Quillen, and an undetermined location for Danny Garcia and Adrian Granados. Two guys both coming off losses who, both, at least this way, one of them's guaranteed to pick up a win. That takes us all the way into April. So not bad. There's some fights I really like. There's some venues I really like. There's some venues I really don't particularly like. I get it that PBC has a deal with Barclays Center, but come on, why are the Charlos at Barclays and not in Texas? Especially December when a lot of folks are home and looking for things to do before Christmas. It would have been a lot of sense. So, I'll give them a a fairly solid B. Depending on how some of these go, it might slip to a B minus or might cruise up to a B plus. We'll see. But I don't hate these fights, and I like seeing the schedule busy and filling up. That's definitely a plus.
Good thing that you're going to see a lot of boxing to end, not only end the year, but to begin 2019. I'm a little surprised that the Charlo brothers are fighting at Barclays. That's number one. Two, as I said, I like that Usyk Plant fight. I think that has a chance to be a low-key, very good fight. One-time Thurman, sometime Thurman. I'm glad he's getting back into the ring. Okay, gets Josecito Lopez. Solid comeback. Leo Santa Cruz, listen, that's basically a setup fight for Gary Russell, who we all know only fights once a year. And so that one fight is going to be Leo Santa Cruz. Darrell, okay fight. Porter Ugas, there has the potential to be a sneaky good fight as well. I'm surprised that Mikey Garcia decided to go to Texas to fight Spence. I don't know how popular Garcia is in the state of Texas. Still, it says something about Garcia that he's willing to go basically to Errol Spence's home turf in order to fight him, just in spite of my questioning his decision to move up to fight Spence. Be that as it may, overall solid, very solid ending to boxing in 2019, as well as in 2018, as well as the beginning of 2019 for Fox PBC. I'll go to you, Daniel. Quick reaction to the fights to end the year on PBC and Fox, and you also had some news regarding some unification bouts that's happening at 122 pounds.
Well, the first on that one, it looks like there are going to be some negotiations between Danny Roman and Ray Vargas. So that's a solid matchup.
I'd rather see Roman fight Dogbe.
I can see how he's doing it, but Ray Vargas is a good test. Like both men will bring out the best in each other. Now, as far as the schedule, remember, it's scattered across regular Fox and FX1. Some of the fights aren't as eye-catching as some of them, but it does tell you the direction of what they want to do. And, well, Fox in general, because Fox wants to have this block that they want to have, because not only did they have acquired, I think next season, the rights to Thursday Night Football for the NFL, they've also acquired the rights for WWE SmackDown program. And the way it's looking to be shaping up, it looks like they're going to have this 4-day block where it's going to be obviously Thursday night NFL. They're going to have the WWE move SmackDown to Friday night. Obviously, a lot of Saturdays are going to be, if they're not filled with boxing, they're going to be filled most likely with baseball. And get following with the NFL. I was worried a bit because some of these fights, they looked like some of them could have gone to Showtime. Like Mikey Spence. You would have figured that would have been Showtime pay-per-view, not Fox pay-per-view. But because not a lot of the opponents, not a lot of the matchups are like, let's say, real world title, real world beater shots. It does fill up a pretty good network card. And Bo is listening because he just texted me. Porter versus Ugas is the greatest fight in the PBC schedule. Oh.
Oh my God. I'm worried about you, Bo. I'm worried.
Shout out to
Sure.
shout out to Truth and Fact Sports Talk. Who's listening to us live again? If you want to join us, hit me up. I left you an email. Yeah, I left you an email with the links if you want to join us.
Yes, Jesus Christ.
And yeah, luckily he's not on because I'd have muted him for that Porter Ugas comment in the YouTube chat. We will proceed, Daniel.
No, I was about to say it's a pretty easy card. It's a pretty easy schedule set up because now you don't have to wait. That was a great mystery when it came to these PBC cards. A lot of them you didn't know when they were going to come on. Now you have a set schedule for the entire year, where you know you're going to get guaranteed in the fight, and it'll be fun to see what they're going to do in 2019, because the second half of 2019, because obviously we know Showtime's going to be jockeying for position of some other fights coming into, since now they're not going to get Joshua, and depending on if Wilder gets past Fury, it'll be a fight to see. It'll be strange to see what they're going to do. What are they going to build up on when it comes into it? Because Showtime on that HBO has stated that they are going to stick around for a good while.
One more bit of news development before I move on to preview some fights. A few shows back, I talked about negotiations taking place for a potential bout between Kazuto Ioka and Donnie Nietes. Both Ioka and Nietes fought in separate bouts in the Superfly 3 card. Ioka returning from a brief retirement, very impressive win over McWilliams Arroyo. Nietes' controversial draw against a fellow Filipino fighter by the name of Bellew. Most folks felt that Nietes won and won clearly. Well, learned during my time off, and I wrote this for Three Kings Boxing, that the fight is now official. Ioka, week and a half ago, I believe it was, in Japan, held a news conference talking to the Japanese press and said that the fight is on. The fight is going to happen December 31st in Macau. Your reaction, Gail, Daniel, to the news that you're going to see Ioka Nietes, for those who follow the smaller weight fighters, very good bout to end the year. Your reaction to the fight itself and your thoughts on the fact that this fight is happening in Macau and not in Japan.
Well, lots of money in Macau. Lots of money. It is the Las Vegas of Asia. And, for that reason, it makes a lot of sense. Like the fight, it's very ambitious for both of these guys. And I like it being in Macau. I think it'll, yes, Japan, would have made sense, but it's a little more neutral territory for these guys, a little bit more exciting in its own way. You'll get a lot of fans, for both guys traveling there. I think it makes enormous sense, and there's nothing not to like about it. If you like the smaller weight classes, these guys both have tremendous skill, class acts. It should be a great matchup. It really should.
And excuse me for interrupting, but let me chime in. The bout between Nietes and Ioka and Nietes, will be for the vacant WBO belt at 115 pounds. Continue on.
And you know what is interesting to me though is if you look at some of the ratings in the division, there are other guys, higher up on the chart than Nietes. What's interesting to me though is this month's Ring Magazine has him 7th pound for pound, Nietes, and he's not even at the top of his weight division on a lot of lists. So that was kind of a head scratcher, a little bit. I mean, I'm glad to see some of the smaller divisions getting some love from them, but I kind of find that a little bit odd. But it's a title fight in a big venue, and it's the smaller weight divisions. It's, for those of us on this show, that's sort of a boxing, nerds geek out fight. It really is.
Your thoughts, Daniel?
Number one, not only is the fight good in the sense of the fact that, Macau is one of the autonomous regions in China where they pretty much let almost anything happen. But it's a good middle ground. You take it to Japan, the audience is going to be overwhelmingly for Ioka. And you can't have to fight in the Philippines. Then the crowd would be almost completely for Nietes. So it's a good, fairly ground. It's Kazuto, even though he did really, really good in Superfly 3, doesn't have enough of a profile where you could say you could take this fight to the US, you could take this fight to a StubHub Center as a headliner by itself. So going to Asia makes sense, and going to Macau, it's good middle ground, makes sense. You're going to get the hardcore fans that are going to go, that want to travel to China. So it's a good fight to do it in, and it's an interesting matchup in a way, because we know with Kazuto, he was for a while, like I said, a good friend of the program, Nato, was pointed out, he was for a while that top money draw in Japan. But he has been overtaken in recent years by Naoya Inoue and Ryota Murata. And Nietes has always, unfortunately had to have a really, really good career just in the shadow of Manny Pacquiao. So it's a good fight for both men. Both men could cement their legacies in this fight. I like it.
I mean, look, the smaller weight divisions, particularly Superfly, has been getting a lot of attention over the past couple of years with Inoue in the division, with before he moved up earlier this year, with Roman Gonzalez, with I don't want to call him Kit Kat. That's rude. Rungwasai, Sarisa Cat, Sora Rungwasai in the division, and it continues on with this fight, maybe happening overseas in Macau. However, if you're a hardcore fan, if you pay attention to the smaller weight divisions and you're really about that, you're going to pay attention to this fight for sure. High profile bout in Asia particularly, and it will gather a lot of attention among fans of the smaller weight divisions. Let's move on to, well, before we move on, any other news or tidbits that you want to drop before we start previewing one main fight and then closing down the show? Gail, Daniel, any exclusives?
Ha 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 ha, you wish. I will say this. I do see that an article's been dropped late that features an interview with Igas Klimas, who is the manager of many of the great Eastern European fighters, including Oleksandr Usyk, who we were talking about earlier in the show. And he did confirm their plan is for Usyk to go up to heavyweight in 2019. So not a big surprise. Sounds like he's done playing at cruiserweight. And he also did admit, the first few fights would be easing him into the division. So should be fun to watch him.
At Bo's request, because he's out with his He's out with his daughter at the moment. He has stated that we would talk about these two things. For Gail specifically to talk about Pacquiao Broner,
Oh my
and for us to
God.
mention Dillian White and Derek Chisora too.
Bo, what have I done to you?
No, he could have done worse. He
You're
could have
gonna
done.
make me talk about. Well, I know. Oh, don't. No. Do
He
not
could have
say
actually.
it. No. No. I know. I know that El Perro and El No Mas. I haven't said names. I have not said names. I will not say names. I'm bowing my head. All right. You know what? Pacquiao Broner's starting to sound pretty good now that you've set me right. You know, it's just sort of a bizarre fight. It's like both guys, you know, not having gotten dates and left the bar and thought, hey, you got anything to do? No. You got anything to do? No. Well, okay. You want to hang out? I mean, it's just so odd. Talk about a clash of personalities and clash of styles. And, you know, it's just, I really am having a hard time wrapping my head around the whole thing. And I suppose it's so bizarre that, you know, there might be something in it, but I'm really having a hard time digesting it. This is a really hard meal to chew. The one thing I am glad to see is that Pacquiao announced he was sort of done with his self-management, self-training experiment, and is wisely bringing Freddie Roach back. Funny enough, he's not calling him his trainer. He's calling him something else. And pardon me, everybody, I forget what it is, but he's giving him a different description, like he's going to be his advisor or and he is going to train him. I mean, he is going to physically train him. It's not like he's just going to, you know, advise him on business or, you know, something. But he gave him a title other than trainer. I'm not sure we should read all that much into it. Broner, you know, is he going to take this seriously? Is he there for a paycheck? You know, who's he listening to these days? That's always been a big problem for him. He's really easily led astray by people, you know, who do not have his interests at heart. And, you know, it's been painful to watch him misbehave and squander what was at one time some real natural talent that he could have worked hard and developed, and he just didn't do it. And I get it. This is a tough sport. It's hard to be focused and dedicated 24/7, 365 for years and years, but he didn't even come close to that. But hey, they'll fill a casino, you know, they'll fill the MGM. They're going to be in the old Grand Garden Arena, which frankly I prefer far more to T-Mobile. That alone might just get me there. And Pacquiao, you know, for all his faults, is just still a name draw. So there we go. And I didn't have to talk about another damn fight.
Sorry, Mike, but you look at the pictures of Pac in that press conference. Does it remind you, like, what is that movie where they see a still picture and then like the quote is, "Yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got into this mess." That's what Pacquiao looked like in that press conference. Because we know why he's there, because they're giving him money. And they probably told him, like, one of the reasons you have to get money is because of you want this money, you got to get Freddie Roach. You can't have this mess. And I think the advisor thing, I think, is just mainly to offer a compromise where it softens Manny's ego. Like, okay, you're not my trainer, but you're still going to do all the work of a trainer. But it's no secret that Al Heyman has favorites. fighters that he'll give opportunity to time and time again, no matter how badly they screwed up before. And Adrian Broner is one of those favorites. Because he has done nothing to deserve a fight, even against a faded Pacquiao.
Not a damn thing.
Yeah. And it's starting to look like he's going to spend a lot more time in camp trying to cut weight than anything else. We know Pacquiao's not going to have that issue. Like, Pacquiao's a small welterweight. So, kind of get it. Okay, it's a pay-per-view. It's going to be a Showtime pay-per-view where they'll be able to say, okay, we're going to have a pay-per-view in 2019. But it really makes no sense.
And what was Bo's second question?
He wants us to talk about White Chisora 2. I'll say this way. It's a fight that's a year too late. It should have happened a year ago. Because it made sense to do it a year ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only way that fight gets made is if White runs completely out of other options. And Miller's off, right there, standing right there waiting for him. That's the fight to be made for him. It's a matchup of last resort if it does happen. You're right, Daniel. It's too old. The
fight is going to happen the 22nd of December. Given the context, the fact that these are both two British fighters. Listen, Dillian White is not going to fight. That fight with Deontay Wilder, who he's called out, that's not going to happen. You got Big Baby out there, but he's still relatively new to the scene. Where else does Dillian White have to go at this point until he gets a title shot? Because I don't think he's going to. I know he's number one by BC, but that fight with Wilder, that's not going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion. The first fight was a very good fight. I'm not mad that these two are fighting again. They're probably going to get paid a good bit of coin. Given the limited options out there for both guys, it's something, I'm not going to scoff at. I'm going to watch the rematch for sure. So, yeah, I have no real issue with this. Bo asked me one more. He actually texted me too. Daniel, he asked me about the Thai fighter who recently broke Floyd's 50-0 record. Strawweight champion Wang Hang Menethyotin. I can't pronounce this dude's name. From Thailand. Like I said, he recently broke Floyd's 50-0 record earlier this year. WBC champion at 105 pounds. Okay, here's the thing, Bo. I give him credit for what he's done. Long reigning champion at 105 pounds. My issue is, as good as he is, his level of opponents, in spite of his lengthy title reign, to me is a bit suspect. One. Two, as long as he's been champion, where is the talk of him fighting unification bouts? Where is the talk of him possibly fighting Knockout Freshmark, who also has a belt at 105 pounds? I know a lot of Thai fighters don't fight each other for in title fights, but it does happen. Why has there not been talk about him fighting Knockout Freshmark? Why hasn't there been talk about him fighting other champions during his reign at 100 as strawweight champion? That's my issue. So I applaud him for his undefeated streak, but one, I question at times throughout his championship reign opposition. Two, I'm waiting for him to fight a unification bout. If he's not going to fight a unification bout at 105, entertain a possibility of moving up to 108 pounds. Well, you got some fighters there. You got Shiro. You got Angel Acosta. You got Hickey Butler, who, by the way, is going to fight on the Ioka Nietes undercard. That's my issue. Daniel, your thoughts?
Well, there's a reason why Floyd is now touring in Japan, for one thing. And that's pretty much the curse of the lower weights, because they move so fast. Like, you rarely find somebody that stays near that weight class. Like him, CP Fresh Smart staying there. Butler has always gone between 105 and 108 throughout his career. It's very, very rare, though, for them to do it, because their body grows so much that they don't have a chance to unify. Because one minute they may win the belt, and then the next minute they can't make the weight anymore. So I cut them some slack there. However, they really should start, like the Thai should really start looking into making fights among their countrymen, because they could have potential to really make a start of it. And like, granted, right now their most famous fighter is Rungvisai, a fighter that's 10 pounds heavier than the other guy, and it's not going to go down. And like, you could see Rungvisai getting up to bantamweight probably in the year.
Rungvisai, by the way, there is talk of him fighting a unification bout against German Ancanyas in 2019. Continue on.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, that one has its own little problems. But it's pretty, like I said, it's something like, I understand the circumstances. And like I said, there's a reason why Floyd's not messing around in Japan. He knows he pays attention. He knows people trolled him about it. People trolled him with, who was it? It's a Cueca? I think it was Cueca. The other, like, 140-pound or welterweight from Argentina that had like a record close to it, but obviously only fighting Argentina. So I understand it, and hopefully that'll change pretty soon, because when it comes to those divisions, Fresh Smart and Butler, they're my boys, man. Give my boys a chance.
You mentioned Daniel. There's within the midst of your answering Bo's question, Floyd Mayweather. Haven't talked about that situation here on Pound for Pound Box Report. I don't think I have. So let's open it up about that right now. News broke that Floyd was going to fight an MMA bout in Japan to close out the year. A couple of days later, and I'm mad at Floyd about this, because I wrote a very good article about that for Three Kings. Floyd backtracked on that, said this is not going to happen. Like I said, I took some time and wrote about why Floyd is doing this, and all he turns around and says this fight is not happening, basically accusing of the promotional company in Japan of he's being duped by them. Floyd, who is doing businesses in Japan, planning on opening a casino, opening a couple of gyms there. Later on, there was a video of him, I think on TMZ or something like that, saying that he still may fight a 3-round boxing exhibition over there. I'll go to you, Gail, and then you can follow up, Daniel. Kind of unwrapped all of this saga involving Floyd and him in Japan, fighting there, not fighting there, him being claimed that he's being duped. Just try to unwrap all of that. Try to give some kind of explanation to this.
Oh, for Pete's sake, everyone, just calm down. You know, Floyd's just doing business. He's everybody just gets so excited with anything attached to Floyd's name. He talks about, well, maybe I'll do an exhibition, and suddenly it's this full-blown return to boxing. And, everything gets so wound up and so built up out of proportion. And why? Because people respond, they click stories, it's, the whole clickbait thing. His name is a guaranteed attention getter, and everybody wants to glom onto it. He's just a businessman at this point. He just wants to make a buck. He's good at it. He's been very good at it throughout his career. Do respect to him for it. But, everybody getting excited about, oh my God, he's coming back to the ring and he's fighting a Japanese kickboxer. No, he's not. He's talking about, getting dressed and getting in there and, fooling around and having a good time. I mean, it's about as serious a fight as that exhibition a few years ago between Evander Holyfield and Mitt Romney. Seriously? Come on, everybody. Just calm down. And, it got deconstructed for what it was and went away. So thank God. Returning to, breaking Floyd's undefeated record. Come on. This just shows you the idiocy of just rolling up meaningless numbers. You face a lot of, Uber drivers and pizza delivery guys and tomato cans and all that. And sure, you can roll up a record. Look at their combined wins and losses. Look at the quality of these fights. And then, sure, somebody's won 51, 2, 3 fights. In obscure little boxing rings, in tiny towns in front of 50 people. That's nice. Fine. Fun. Was it entertaining? Did you get your money's worth? That's okay. I'm fine with that. Compare it then to somebody who's only had 14 fights, who cleaned out the division with relative ease. But he's only 14-0 versus what? 52-0. Give me a break. Quality over quantity in all things is, it's the way you should live your life, folks. And so that's why Usyk is fighter of the year. And just because the guy has 51 wins, he is not fighter of the year. End of discussion.
Well, tell us how you really feel about that.
I think I did. I think I did pretty well.
Your reaction to all of this stuff, for lack of a better word, regarding Floyd and Japan.
Oh, Floyd and Japan. Well, I said it first when they came to it. I said it last week when me and Joe Francis were talking about it. Because when Floyd put out that Instagram post trying to say why he did it, even though I'm pretty sure he's not the one that wrote it, I can believe him in one sense sentiment that Ryzen, like the MMA promotion that's hosting this, who's trying to make noise, by the way, because they've been trying to, supposedly they're trying to offer big money to Khabib to leave the UFC. But like the only thing I could believe in is that Ryzen threw this at him without explaining to him what it was. He figured that he was going to do what they're technically doing now, which is a 3-round exhibition, but in front of a bunch of Japanese billionaires. And that turned out to be the case, and that's a pay-per-view fight. And when it said the rules are being discussed, you kind of knew that Floyd was going to back away, because we know Floyd Mayweather. If he's not 100% in control of the situation, he's not down. Like you might as well be negotiating with a brick wall if you're not going to give Floyd 100% of everything as far as control. Interestingly enough, though, like there's some people that are still throwing shade that this could actually be on the up and up. I forgot. I think it was an interview to ESPN or SI that Chael Sonnen actually did. Like, if you know Chael Sonnen, he's a fighter fought at UFC, fighting for Bellator, pretty outspoken guy. He's already not done on the idea that Floyd's going to get double crossed, where you're going to have this exhibition. Floyd's not going to try because he doesn't take this meeting, and then suddenly the announcer is going to say, we're going to announce the winner and try to get that one loss in the record. Considering how shady MMA has been in the past few decades, this is very, very plausible, but Floyd has enough people around him where if there's even enough of a stench that can actually happen, they'll just walk away again. Because let's be honest, Ryzen needs Floyd Mayweather a lot more than Floyd Mayweather needs Ryzen. When this first came out, I thought this was just Floyd poking the bear, poking Dana White, saying, this could be you. If you just give me all of the rules, if you just make this rematch with McGregor just be a boxing match inside of an octagon, this could be yours. But now it just looks like Floyd's just going to do whatever. If you throw him enough money, he's going to do it. Which is pretty sad. And at the end, well, for a man that's made a whole lot of money when you're reduced, not that you're reduced to it, it's that if your options are that.
Yeah, so that was a hot mess, to say the least, regarding Floyd. Let's move on to break down some fights. One fight in particular, happening this weekend. Got the locale. Excuse me for a second. AC, Atlantic City.
Hard Rock Hotel Casino, Atlantic City, Edis Arena.
I'm going back to you, Daniel, first. Dmitry Bivol fighting Jean Pascal. Look, Bivol, he was looking for a fight with Kovalev. His dreams was crushed when Kovalev was upset by Eliander Alvarez. He was stopped by Eliander Alvarez. So I guess this fight is with Pascal as a substitute for that, something to close out the year. Look, Pascal, former champion, he is a name at this point. For me, that's all he is. I don't think he's the fighter that he was. I don't think he's close to the fighter that he was. I think this fight was being made just based on name recognition alone. For the suitors at HBO in particular, to put Bivol in there against the guy that folks know. However, that doesn't mean that this is going to be a competitive fight. Pascal in his early mid-30s at this point, he never was the greatest technical fighter in the world. I never thought he had the greatest chin in the world. At this stage, not only do I think he will lose, I think he will get knocked out. And he has a chance to get really, really hurt. In short, I just don't think he has a chance at all against the young, rising Bivol. Whatever you want to say about Bivol and how he looked in his last performance, I think he has way too much for the likes of Jean Pascal here. Your thoughts?
Well, it's not so much that it's a name. This is another proxy, because whether you like it or not, even though, yeah, those dreams were crushed of him fighting Kovalev for unification, because he's Russian, he's still going to be compared to Kovalev. Because that's the last champion that was great from that division. So he's still going to be compared to it. And right now the proxy is, can you knock out Pascal in the first round? Which, unfortunately, given Pascal's chin issues in the past few years, Bivol is definitely more than capable of doing so. The issue is, though, is even if it goes a few rounds, it should be an interesting experience for Bivol, because in a way he's still learning how to be a champion. Because we talked about it last year, like he even himself said it last year that he felt he wasn't ready to be a champion, but he's shown that he's proven that he's done pretty well. And that now is going to push into it. Can you be the next fighter? Can you be the next great fighter from Russia, or can you make that fight? I asked him this in the press conference. Actually, they gave me the straight up. Oh, he was ready to fight anyone. But I want to see now if with Kovalev not being out of the picture, are his sights now are Beterbiev? Because that would be an interesting fight. That would be a very, very, very interesting fight.
Going to you, Gail, for full disclosure. Once again, you do media relations work for Main Events, the promotion. I think the promoter of record for this fight. I believe you're going to be in attendance at the fight. So, am I being what's the word? Am I being unfair here with my kind of dismissive attitude towards this fight?
No, I don't think so. I think you're being realistic. It's one of these matchups that we pretty much think we know how it's going to go. There's always, again, the outside chance for an upset or a puncher's chance for a surprise. But the truth is, Pascal, wants to go out on his own terms. We all thought he was going to be retired. And, then he has a fight where he's playing gatekeeper against what we all thought was going to be a fairly good fight, coming out party for a young light heavyweight who's been looking for a chance, Ahmed El Bialy, and by God, he beat him. And pretty handily, too, for that matter. So suddenly Pascal thinks, maybe I'm not quite so done after all. And he has still a tremendous following in Canada. He's beloved. The fans, love him. He's a great guy to work with. He wants a couple more fights. Hell, why not? He's putting butts in the seats. He's, working. He's promoting. He thinks he's still got something to offer. And, he is a name who has faced all the top guys of his time in the division, has some really good fights. So he's a good comparative test for Bivol. And it's a bit of a stay busy fight for Bivol while he's waiting for the rest of the division to sort out. But, good for Pascal. And, he's been fairly realistic in the days leading up to the fight. On the recent media conference call, he said, listen, what I have that he doesn't is my experience as a professional. And that's a different thing than being an amateur, And he said, I can remember when I was young and sexy like that. And he was laughing and, good for him. He's going into it, I think, with eyes wide open. He's very respectful of Bivol, and Bivol is very respectful of him. And, here in Atlantic City, it's Thanksgiving weekend. You're looking for something to do. Hey, it's priced right. We've got a lot of young prospects that Bivol's promoter, World of Boxing, is bringing in, including a couple of Russian heavyweights that should be interesting to watch. You got Karl Dargan coming back out of Philadelphia with brother Nazim, his uncle, at his side. And you could find a lot worse things to do. You're probably sick of turkey by Saturday. And, the Edis Arena is a terrific little venue. So, yeah, I'm talking up the fight, but I truly believe in what I'm saying, that for folks, it'll be fun. And this is the very last official HBO World Championship Boxing banner card ever. So to say that you fought on this card, that's, you know, makes you a hell of a trivia question. It really does. The fight in December 8th is going to be a Boxing After Dark card. So that's, even though there are titles in play, December 8th, this is the last official World Championship Boxing card. And Pascal pointed out that he was the first Canadian to fight on HBO, and he'll be the last.
You went mute on me, Gail. Go ahead. Your mic went mute.
Oh, okay. I'll repeat that last line. Pascal pointed out that he was the first professional Canadian boxer to ever appear on HBO. And on Saturday, he's going to be the last professional boxer from Canada to ever appear on HBO.
Nice fun fact to recap this fight. One more fight and fighter of note before I go around and ask for everybody's info for folks who want to talk boxing with each of you guys. Welterweight out of Philadelphia by the name of Bouts, Jerron "Bouts" Ennis, fought on Showtime in his hometown of Philadelphia. Scored a KO over a guy by the name of Serrano. I mentioned him because I don't think I've talked about him on the show before. 22-0, 20 KOs. The fight against Raymond Serrano was a bit of a step up, and he took him apart with ease. Really fast southpaw welterweight. I just wanted to mention him because for me, based on what I've seen of him, his last few fights have been on ShowBox. I like this guy a lot as a fighter. I think he's really, really talented. Him along with UK welterweight Josh Kelly. I think those are the best welterweight prospects on the scene right now. And so, yeah, Jerron "Bouts" Ennis, just keep an eye out on him. I think he has real talent, real talent to make something, to even possibly be a world champion. I think he has that kind of potential. Going to go around the panel here, starting with you, Gail. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk Dancing with the Stars, Game of Thrones, small business advice, let the folks know where they can find you.
Hey, Dancing with the Stars finals tonight, just saying. You can find me and my regular column, Ringside Seat, on Communities Digital News. That's COM, C-O-M-M, Digi, D-I-G-I News, comdiginews.com. And hey, if you are coming out to Atlantic City this weekend, come and say hello.
Daniel from the Inscriber, I think you're going to be at the fight, at the Atlantic City fight this weekend. I'm not sure. I know you took part in the teleconference call, but if not, for the folks who want to talk the sweet science, for the folks who want to talk the NBA, specifically the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
You can find me on Twitter, Ruckus99. I was actually about to ask the Gail on that because work has been busy now, and I need a press pass, I think. So.
Well, I think we better hustle you up because the deadline was Friday, but we could, you know, let's talk after the show.
Yeah. Yeah, because, well, yeah, work was just busy. The main thing was that, though, find me on Twitter, Ruckus99. Me, Joe, and Francis are not going to do our show this week because of Thanksgiving, but we're obviously going to do it the week afterwards. We're definitely going to talk about the fights that happened, the Bivol fight, the unfortunate the Leatherbeck fight versus Mike Wilson, because that's like actually going to be in the zone. The grudge match, unfortunately, between Jeff Horn and Anthony Mundine. And obviously by then we'll be able to preview Wilder Fury.
First of all, let me say, if you like what you've heard this evening, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell. You will get alerts whenever we drop an episode, Pound for Pound Box Report. Hit that like button. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on iTunes, as well as SoundCloud. If you want to leave a review on iTunes, by all means do so. 5-star review. It will get read during the show. I want to thank Gus from Corruption and Boxing, both from Truth and Facts Sports Talk, as well as Three Kings Boxing for joining us live in the YouTube. Also, thank me, myself, and I. Question here before we head off, because I didn't see it earlier in the chat. Gus, by the way, said that he thinks Usyk, beats them all at heavyweight. Me, myself, and I, he asked in the YouTube chat, would it be too dangerous for Usyk to fight Big Baby Miller? Gail, Daniel, a quick response to that question.
Well, he'd be arguably the smallest heavyweight of, of note against the biggest heavyweight of note. If he does it, he doesn't do it right away. He just can't. I mean, here he is. He's been fighting at 200 pounds, and Big Baby weighed 315 and a quarter for his last fight. Wow. I don't see it. Let's give him somebody, more like 240 or 260. 315. Damn. I think he needs a little more time in the ring and a little more build up to feeling more comfortable in that division. But he's always going to be on the smaller side for a heavyweight, but I think he needs to, settle up into that size. I'm picturing these two. I mean, it never occurred to me to picture these two together in my mind, Gus. So now that I got a lot to think about.
Well, obviously the main thing to point on is the size disparity. It is very notable. And like I said, for that size, Big Baby's pretty mobile, but at the same time, if, like I said, when you get technical in this fight that he had with Dooney, he ate a lot of shots early on. He gave a couple of rounds away. So there's always that chance where he feels that, and when we talked about this, Mike, before, like when it comes to Big Baby, you mentioned it's like a weight bully.
Yeah.
Like he'll feel that his size will block him at anything, and you can't do that with somebody like Usyk, who is completely dedicated to the jab, who will beat you when it comes to footwork, will beat and probably will definitely beat you on the skill set front. It's an interesting fight. It's a fight where if I'm Big Baby's team, I'm telling him, no, you need to come in. I know you feel good at 317. You need to come in at 280. Because he will move circles around you.
Yeah. Can Usyk do it? Yeah. Can he beat Big Baby? Yeah. But I want to see him get some fights in the belts at heavyweight, get his body adjusted to the added weight, and get used to dealing with the stronger fighters with power before you put him there with the likes of a Big Baby, who is a weight bully, who is very physical in there. And, for a fighter his size, he throws a lot of punches. So could he beat Big Baby? Yeah. But to your point, Daniel, I don't want to see him in there with the likes of Big Baby so soon. Not yet. Not yet. Get some fights in there and get himself adjusted to the bigger guys in the division, to the guys with strength, that kind of strength and that kind of power. Like as I was saying before, if you like what you heard this evening, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit that bell on YouTube, so you'll get alerts of when the next episodes are dropping or anything Pound for Pound Box Report. As I said to begin the show, You can find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report on the blog page, P4P Boxing Report. .wordpress.com. That is the link. Check the Radler page. You will find links to our channels and pages, Facebook, YouTube, G+, you know the spill, all the social media sites, as well as links to where to listen to the show on any available platform that carries podcast, minus Spotify. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Bivol and Dmitry Bivol, his fight against John Pascal, and we will do a preview of Deontay Wilder fighting Tyson Fury. The fight is coming up. It's happening very soon. It's happening on December 1st. We will do a preview of that. Jared Hurd, he's going to be defending his titles on the undercard, fighting Jason Wellborn. Luis Ortiz is fighting Travis Kaufman on that same card. Joe Joyce is fighting on that card. And your favorite fighter, Gail, he's making his return to the ring.
Please.
Against Mr. One-Eyed Guy. So that's all going to happen. Adonis Stevenson, that same weekend on the 1st, he's going to fight Oleksandr Gvozdyk. I think it's going to be a very good fight. Do not be surprised if Gvozdyk beats Stevenson. So yeah, we will preview all of those fights. So yeah, episode 229 is in the books. We're back after a couple of weeks layoff. Again, I want to thank Gus from Corruption in Boxing, both from Truth and Facts About Sports. Me, myself, and I. Thanks for the question. For Daniel from the Inscriber, from Gail from Communities Digital News, I am your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.